Hello everyone, welcome to another Crime Scene Press event. With me is Miss Ann Cleeves. She's the best-selling author of the Shetland series, the Vera Stanhope series, and a new series that I think the first book is called The Heron. I can't remember the name of the protagonist though.
The first book in the series is called The Long Call, and the second one is The Heron's Cry. Yeah, and the protagonist is Matthew Venn.
Okay, great. So 3 best-selling series from you. This year you've also been awarded the Order of the British Empire. Am I right?
Yeah, that's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Why?
It doesn't feel quite real, but I got it for services to reading and libraries. So I was persuaded that I should accept it so I can carry on fighting for the importance of reading for pleasure and libraries. So.
Yeah. Well, for libraries and reading, I think it's well deserved. You've drawn so many readers from all over the world, so I think it's well deserved. Okay, so let's talk about Wildfire, the last book of the Shetland series, and the latest of your books, which is going to come out at Crime Scene Press. In Romanian, it's called sălbatic. And this is the novel that wraps up the Shetland series. It's Jimmy Perez's last case. Take us a bit through the book. What should the readers expect?
I suppose it is a book that ties up some loose ends, but leaves some ends open in case I want to do a short story or I want to think about taking the characters somewhere else, somewhere a bit further forward. But there will be no more Shetland books. I think 8 is enough. There are only 21,000 people live in all the Shetland Islands, and I've killed off quite a few of them already. Yeah. And the BBC adaptation killed off a lot more. They were much more gruesome than me. So I think it was enough. And Shetland is a very special place. I love it, and I still go back and visit. But I wanted to finish the series before I got bored and before readers got bored. So yeah, this is looking at Jimmy Perez having to face a very different kind of future and looking at how he might, move forward.
Great. It's also, I think, one of the more complex novels in the series. I think the plot is a lot more complicated. It goes back in time a lot. It also ties up to the present. Did you have a specific inspiration for the plot?
I think I wanted to take it back almost to the beginning. The first book, Raven Black, is about being an outsider, and it's about young people feeling that they don't belong specifically. And this book is about a middle-class, well-educated family who moved to a quite remote village in Shetland because they have a son on the autistic spectrum, and they think that he might get better care there. And I suppose, again, it's about how people accept people who are different from them and how the child is accepted and how this family, who are very different from the rest of the community, is accepted too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering if the last 4 novels in the Shetland series, the so-called Elements Quartet, how come the Fire is the last one?
I think that was just chance. I don't plot in advance, and I certainly don't plot more than 1 book ahead. Okay. So I think that the first one in the second quartet is called Cold Earth, and I had this picture in my head of a landslide and of the earth running down and finding a body within the earth. So I think that, but fire is passionate, isn't it? And this is a bit of a passionate book too. It's about people who fall in love.
Sure. I also thought that fire has this cleansing quality as well. If readers will find out more about that in the book.
That's right. Yeah, it does. And And it is, yes, it's very dramatic too. And I think I did want quite a drama to end the whole series with.
When was Wildfire first published in the UK?
I'm trying to think. I think it was 2018.
Okay.
And it was the right time for me because my husband died at the end of 2017. And so I was grieving for him while I was doing the rewrites and reading the proofs of the novel. And he was so tied up with my life in Shetland. We met on Fair Isle, which is the island where Jimmy Perez was raised. And so it did seem almost as if it was the right time, like a thread being cut somehow. But it seemed very fortuitous, if very sad, that the book marked the end of that series just after Tim died.
I'm sorry to hear that. But I think it's also different because Shetland is kind of remote as it is, but the plot in here, or at least the murder, takes place in the northernmost point of Shetland. It's even remoter than
the one
island.
of the most northern bits, certainly, of Shetland mainland. There are a couple of smaller islands that are further north, but yes, and where people have their own traditions and their own ideas of doing things, and where very little knowledge of people from outside, perhaps. Certainly now, in the old days, there would have been fishermen coming and whalers coming, but now I think it is very, it feels very remote when you go up to those places.
Yeah. How do you think Jimmy Perez evolved over the course of the 8 novels? Did you have you just said you don't plan ahead, so yeah, yeah.
He did develop, though. I think he did grow, and I got to know him better, certainly when I was writing him, and he became more confident in his own skin. I think he had a bereavement too. At the end of the first quartet, he lost the love of his life, and so this second quartet is him rebuilding his life, I think, and finding that life can go on and that he can still play an enormous part within his community, but also feel ready to make changes in his life too.
Yeah, he does feel a lot more confident, if a bit weary or maybe cautious about other people, but he does feel a lot more mature, let's say, in the second quartet.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because when he first starts in Raven Black, he's new back to the islands. He'd been living in Aberdeen. He's recently divorced. So he's there just finding his feet again in this community that he'd left behind. And really, Shetland mainland wouldn't have been his main home. Fair Isle, which is one of the smaller, it is the most remote inhabited island in the UK, would have been very different than Shetland mainland, which has now become quite buzzy because the oil came and it was a major oil terminal. And since then, there's lots of cultural tourism is happening. So it would be quite alien to him. He wouldn't know that bit of Shetland too well.
Yeah.
And over the 4 books and then into the second quartet, he feels more at home there, I think.
When you finished the second quartet, let's say, you just said it was tied to the ending of Jimmy Perez's adventures, let's say. But were you happy it finished? I mean, were you happy to move on from Shetland? Or
yeah, I was. It was sad in a way, but it did feel very much the right time to move on and do something different. Shetland is terrific, and I love it, and it's bleak and it's beautiful. But I thought there were only so many things, so many stories that I could tell about it. The palette is very even. It's very much the same wherever you are in Shetland. People's preoccupations are much the same. when I write Vera, there's a huge range of different backgrounds here in the northeast of England. There are the beautiful bits, the coast and the hills and the moors. But then there are the post-industrial bits where there used to be coal mines and there aren't anymore. And we used to build ships and we don't anymore. So you get real pockets of deprivation. So there's a far wider range of places that I can set stories and a far wider range of subjects that I can tackle here. So I think I was ready to move on, and I moved back with the new series back to North Devon, which is where I grew up.
In our last interviews, we didn't ask you this, but I was just wondering, how did the people in Shetland react to the series, or I mean the TV series and or the books?
Well, at first there was a lot of wariness and suspicion because I'm not a Shetlander. You know, I'd lived there a couple of years, but I hadn't lived there for quite a long while. And although I go back and I get local people to read the books, it wasn't quite the same as being written by somebody who lived there. But then they saw a great rise in tourism, not so much from the books, but certainly from the TV show. And I think from the first book being published, tourism has gone up by 50%.
Wow.
And that's, I think, because people want to see where Jimmy Perez's house is, and there are all the cruises want to do the Jimmy Perez tour and see the places where the filming took place, and also to see where the books were set too. So yeah, people are. I'm much more welcome in Shetland now, I think, because the oil is going and the gas is going. So Shetlanders need someone to bring some income in, and tourists, cultural tourists especially, can do that.
Yeah. Now I'm walking on thin ice because I don't want to spoil the book for anyone, but at the same time, I'm really curious if there was a moment when you decided that Jimmy Perez was going to get something good, or maybe there was the thought of, okay, let's give him something bad at the end of the book. I'm trying to walk around the spoilers, but was there a moment where you had made this decision to either go one way or the other?
Not until right at the end. No, I left it until right at the end to decide how I was going to finish it. So that was quite fun, really. I could tease people with all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah, because the flashbacks are intense. The imagery, I think, in the book was really great, with all the bonfires or the beacons that were lighted on the islands. Is that something that people did in Shetland, or was it something you came up with for the book?
The idea of the beacons, I think, happened in England for one of our major celebrations. People lit beacons on headlands, but I don't think it is a Scottish thing, and I don't think it is a major tradition in Shetland. So I stole it.
Yeah, I know in Raven Black, I think you mentioned the Uphilly AA, which I mean,
Uphilly, yes.
Yeah, and
that is real.
That is real, and there's also a lot of fire going on there, but it's not the same from
Uphilly is huge in Shetland. It's a major festival, and they build it's a look back to the Viking heritage. So they build a big Viking galley and they pull it through the streets and everyone dresses up, and then they burn the galley on a big bonfire in the centre of Lerwick. So that really does happen.
I was also curious about Willow Reeves. She seems, she is a character which is very different from the other people in Shetland. She also becomes an outsider when she first sets foot in Shetland. Was there a certain inspiration for her character, or?
I don't think so. I think, again, there are lots of people who come in from outside into Shetland, and some people settle very easily and love it. And some people try too hard and stick out like sore thumbs, and other people just can't take it at all. And I think because Willow grew up on another Scottish island and her parents were a bit hippie and a bit, her rebellion was to join the police service because she knew that her parents would hate that she was becoming part of the order of the state. So she again was very interested. I loved writing Willow.
Yeah, she's a very likable character, and it's interesting that at times she feels maybe clumsy, although she's not really, but she kind of feels that one step away from the inner circle of
That's
Shetland.
right. Yeah. And a bit resented because she's a woman taking a major role and she's Perez's boss.
Were there any negative reactions to the series, to the books in Shetland? I mean, did anyone say, "Oh my God, you're picturing us as murderers" or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think people picked up on very small details that I'd not got quite right. And I'm much more careful about as the series went on, because I wasn't even sure when I wrote the first book that it would get published. There was no guarantee that a publisher would take it. I got more careful as the series ran on to check details that I wasn't sure about. But no, Shetlanders are a very generous bunch. And I think because it did well and because the TV series did well, they feel quite proud of that. You know, they're like proud parents that they can take a bit of the glory as well, which of course they can because it's their landscape, which looks so stunning on the screen and which is so brilliant for a crime novel. When you're describing it with words, it's so dramatic. And the weather is so extreme that it feeds in very, very well to that sort of Scandi type sense of the drama.
And you're great at writing the scenery. I mean, you just feel you're there. It's incredible. Once again, thank you so much for writing the books. They're great.
Oh, thank you so much for publishing them.
And thank you for accepting the interview.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your generosity.